I've been doing a lot of thinking after seeing this format, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, but I think Called by the Grave should be banned. There, I said it. Not much of an intro here, but basically in this video, I'll be explaining to you why I think Called by should be banned, and look at some counter arguments on why people would disagree. Okay, let's start the video, shall we? Alright, before I talk about Called by, I need to talk about the state Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in right now. I think everyone can agree that combo decks have become way more oppressive over the years, and the only way to deal with them is with hand traps. However, the majority of our best hand traps all send themselves from the hand to the graveyard, which makes them targets for Called by the Grave. Because of this, all combo decks can push through our best hand traps with ease, and when you have that one Called by turn 1, it can be game winning as you can negate the hand trap that would hurt your end board the most. Even if the card is limited, you only need that one Called by to stop the hand trap that would hurt you. Here, let's look at a deck from this format to show you just how powerful that one Called by can be. Okay, let's look at Despia as an example. What's the one card you want to stop Despia players from using turn 1? It's Branded Fusion, and the only way to stop it is with Ash Blossom. However, if they have that Called by the Grave, they can negate your Ash, and now you have to deal with the Mirror Jade, which is not the easiest monster to fight as it has non-targeting, non-destruction removal. It can set up for next turn plays thanks to Albion, and if it dies during the end phase, it's going to blow up your board. All of this could have been avoided if your Ash went through, but sadly Called by negated it, for free I might add, which is another problem with this card. It can negate your hand traps with no cost or downside whatsoever. If it's in the graveyard, then it's going to get negated. Having a card that can negate hand traps for free probably shouldn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! As now we need hand traps to stop plays like Branded Fusion, as there could only be one hand trap that can stop those plays. Now, you might think that people won't need Called by the Grave when Power of the Elements comes out and we have to deal with sprites and Tearlaments, but honestly, I can see them playing Called by as well, because playing that card grants you a ton of benefits. No matter what deck you're playing, Called by can just help you beat any hand trap in the game that sends itself to the graveyard, so whatever hand trap works on those two decks probably might get stopped by Called by. Basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that no matter how broken a combo deck might be, or no matter how many extenders it might have, they can still use Called by, since pushing through hand traps can be game winning for these combo decks as their boards are beyond impossible to break. So one thing I will say about Called by is that I understand why the card is at 2 in the OCG and in Master Duel, and that's because of Max C, as that card can kill a lot of combo decks in the game. And I mean, how many combo decks can actually beat Max C? Probably none. However, we don't have Max C in the TCG. In fact, I don't think the TCG will ever bring back Max C. Why? Well, that's a video for another time. But speaking of the TCG, I can prove to you guys that they don't even like Called by themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if on the next ban list, they ban this card. Do you guys remember when Called by first came out and it was in 2018? Well, in that same year after Called by was out for a while, the TCG semi-limited the card. Why? Probably because they didn't like how Goki used it. And yes, they did put Called by to 3 at one point, but they reversed the decision and decided to put the card to 1. Not just because the card is powerful in of itself, but also they thought that Crossout would be played in everything, and they didn't want players having 6 ways to negate hand traps. Now that would have been ridiculous. Granted, Crossout did flop when it came here, but honestly the logic made sense to put Called by to 1, as we don't need more ways of stopping hand traps. Anyways, moving on, I think we should talk about some counter arguments to why people want Called by to stay around. Starting with the biggest one, and that's banning Called by the Grave would hurt rogue decks. Now, when it comes to this argument from my point of view, it's starting to lose its credibility. What do I mean by that? Well, people have made the argument that a lot of rogue decks lose to one hand trap. However, if you look at the rogue decks we've had over the past couple of formats like Adagnister, Marincess, DDD, Salamangreat, etc., they too can fight through one hand trap just like the top meta decks. Hell, even Heroes, a deck known for getting curb stomped by hand traps, can now fight through them. This is shown as they won the Greece National Qualifier back in June. Why is this happening, you're asking? Well, it's because most of these decks got support that made them better and have more options so they don't lose to one hand trap. That's what these rogue decks need. They don't need Called by, they just need better support. Now, I do have to say this, and I don't want to be mean here, but if your deck loses to one Ash Blossom, sorry to tell you, but your deck is just bad and you need to work on building a better one. In today's Yu-Gi-Oh, you should expect getting ashed or something. No one is just going to sit there letting you combo willingly, then you'll make a hard to break board for them and they'll have a hard time trying to beat it. Which is why they want to avoid that as much as possible by using hand traps. So to put it in short, if your deck loses to Ash, 1, it needs better support, and 2, you need to work on building a better deck with maybe adding some extenders or something. Look, I don't want to come off as mean, but it's the truth. It's kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh has become. Alright, back onto the main video. Another counter argument to keeping Called By around is how it can be useful in other situations than just negating hand traps. It can stop things like the Adventurer Engine by negating Water Enchantress the moment she hits the grave. It can stop Artifact Scythe if he is popped. And finally, it can stop Toad in this upcoming format as it sends itself to the grave. Now, this argument I can understand, I'll give you that, but I don't think it will be enough to stop this card from getting hit. Just because a card does have benefits doesn't stop it from getting banned if it's doing something degenerate. One last counter argument I have, and I'll just keep this one short, is that Crossout and Talons exist, which is true, but Called By is way better than those two cards combined. As I said before, Called By can negate for free, while Crossout requires you to play the same card as your opponent, and Talons doesn't really negate the hand trap, it just compensates you if you do get hand trapped, but your main plays still can go through. That's all I'm going to say about this one, because it's pretty obvious that this argument isn't too strong, but I just feel like mentioning it here. One more thing I wanted to mention here before I end the video is that now a majority of the players actually agree that Called By should be banned. People have realized that having a card that can push through hand traps with little to no effort should not be allowed in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not fun having to sit there and let your opponent combo for 20 minutes, and we don't have a hand trap like Maxi that can straight up kill combo decks. That's just something I wanted to bring up because now it's become more apparent that people want this card out the game. Well folks, I pretty much gave my reasoning on why I think Called By will get banned. Remember, this is just my opinion. If I'm wrong, whatever, but let me know what you think. Do you think Called By the Grave should be banned or not? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for watching.